Please start.
Good afternoon. This is our fifth session for paper 7. Hopefully you are enjoying the session. Is there any question, any doubt? Today we will cover chapters from GST in these 2 hours. Try to cover as many as possible. Surely not all chapters may not be covered, but I will try to cover maximum of it. GST. When it is triggered, the GST, the taxable event in case of GST, that is goods and service taxes, is supply. If there is a supply, then GST may be triggered. Unless and until there is a supply, GST is not applicable. GST is not applicable at all. So first, the question number 1, in our mind, we are required to adjust. We are supposed to understand what is the meaning of supply. Supply is defined under Section 7 of the Central Goods and Service Tax Act. Section 7 is divided into 4 parts. Section 7.1, Section 7.1a, and Section 7.2 and Section 7.3. First section, that is Section 7.1, provide the definition, an inclusive definition of supply, and then couple of more part of it which covers the deemed supply. Even though certain conditions are not fulfilled, still it will be treated as deemed supply. 7.1a, this section prescribed just clarification, just provides certain clarification regarding whether the particular supply is a supply of goods or whether a particular supply is a supply of services. Section 7.2 provide a negative list. That means these transactions, these activities are not treated as supply. Hence, question of GST does not arise on this type of transactions. Section 7.1, which provide the definition and an inclusive definition of supply, also provide a deeming provision. That means these transactions, even though certain conditions are not fulfilled, it is termed, it is deemed as supply. These are covered in Schedule 1. The clarification are given in Schedule 2, and negative list is covered in Schedule number 3. We will try to discuss each and every aspects of the supply. Now, the term definition supply, the inclusive definition suggests that supply includes all forms of supplies of goods or service or both. If the supply is not of goods or services or both, then it is not treated as supply. That means we are required to supply, a person is required to supply, but supply should be of goods or services or both. Such as, these are the example how the mode of supply may be. This is maybe through sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration. That means the supply should be there. Supply should for consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. Ideally, there are 3 requirements this section suggests. This section suggests to identify particular activity as a supply. We are required to check it is a supply of goods or services or both. Supply of goods or services or both. And it should be against consideration, maybe immediate or maybe deferred. Number 3, and in the course or furtherance of business. If these 3 criteria are fulfilled, then the activity, that the transaction is termed as supply and it will trigger the GST. Is that clear? Second part suggests that ideally, as per principle of mutuality, the transaction between one person cannot be treated as an income, or that transaction does not consider as a transaction at all. The activity does not consider as a transaction at all. For example, no one can earn from himself. In income tax law, we know that principle of mutuality is well discussed in income tax law. However, in case of GST, any activities or transaction by a person other than individual to its member for cash or other valuable consideration shall be treated as supply. This is basically to cover transactions between club and between their members. Suppose a particular members comes to club, avails certain services against some payment. This transaction is between the club and its member are treated as supply. The principle of mutuality is not applicable in this type of transaction. Ideally, as per direct taxation, that is as per income tax law, the income arised to club may not be treated as an income due to doctrine of mutuality. But our GST law suggests that doctrine of mutuality is not applicable in this type of cases. That means club is liable to pay GST on the services provided to their members against consideration. Moreover, this explanation suggests that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time in force, that means whatever mentioned in any other law, any judgment, decree or order of any court, tribunal or authority, the person, that means the club and its member shall be deemed to be two separate persons, and the activities between these two separate persons are treated as supply. Clear? Number third is somehow we can say that it is a deeming in nature. Deemed supply, one can say that it is a deemed nature. Basically, there are three requirements: supply of goods or services. Number two, it is against consideration. And number three, for business purpose. B part suggests that if there is an import of services against consideration for a consideration, whether or not in the course of furtherance of business, that means if you are importing a services and there is a consideration for those services, even though those services are not used for business or profession, still it will be treated as supply. Even though it is not in the course of furtherance of business, it will be treated as supply. One can say that out of the three basic requirements, the third condition, the third requirement to treat a transaction as a supply is missing in this activity, irrespective of the fact whether the transaction, whether these services are in the course of furtherance of business, it will be treated as supply. That means out of these three, two conditions are fulfilled, still third one is not fulfilled, still it will be treated as deemed supply. It will be treated as supply. Similarly, the part C that suggests that even though there are three requirements, supply of goods or services or both, consideration and business in the course of furtherance of business, even though in certain activities, in case of certain transactions, even though there is no consideration, still it will be treated as supply. These type of activities are listed in schedule number 1. The transaction, the activities which are specified in schedule 1 are treated as supply, even though these transactions are made without a consideration. Still, it will be treated as supply. So what is schedule 1? Schedule 1 suggests that even though there is no consideration, still it will be treated as supply. So I'm coming to schedule 1. Schedule 1. Number 1, permanent transfer or disposal of business assets where ITC has been availed at the time of acquisition of these assets. Suppose you acquired a laptop worth rupees 1 lakh. On this laptop, you paid 18,000 as GST and take the ITC of this 18,000. Now, after a couple of years, you are donating this laptop to a charitable trust or using somewhere else free of cost. You are giving these laptop to someone else. In that situation, even though it is donation, even though there is no consideration, still, since at the time of acquisition, you take the advantages of ITC, you take the ITC input tax credit, this donation, even though there is no consideration, these activities is treated as supply. Number one. Number two, supply of goods or services or both between related person or distinct person as specified in section 25. When made in the course of furtherance of business shall be treated as supply, even though there is no consideration. Generally, what happens? Suppose you are a businessman selling laptop. One fine day, your brother visits to the shop and he take this laptop. You are dealing in the laptop, this step, one of the laptop from your inventory to home and started using this one. You are not in position to ask for a consideration. In that situation, this transaction, you cannot say that since there is a consideration, there is no consideration, so this is not treated as supply. Even though there is no consideration, since the transaction is between two related person, even though there is no consideration, it will be treated as supply. Distinct person. What do you mean by distinct person? Distinct person. Ideally, if in case of supply, there are two persons. One is supplier and another one is recipient. But think about a situation where suppose you have a head office in Kolkata and one branch office in Bangalore. In this situation, suppose head office Kolkata is supplying certain goods to Bangalore. The Kolkata head office is supplying goods to Bangalore branch. There is no consideration. The transaction is between two person. Is it between two person? Ideally, the head office and branch are treated as same person. Head office and branch are treated as same person. So ideally, this is not a transaction between two persons. Henceforth, it should not be considered as supply. But the problem is that GST is a destination-based tax. GST is a destination-based tax. When your head office acquire these assets, say these stock or these goods or services, they take ITC. They took ITC. And say it is bought from Kolkata itself, then there is a CGST and SGST. This SGST ITC is for West Bengal GST. Now, since goods are moved from Kolkata to Bangalore, that is a Karnataka state. Karnataka state, ideally, GST is a consumption-based, destination-based tax. This tax is required to be moved from Bengal to Karnataka. If we did not treat this transaction as a supply, in that situation, how could you move? How could this tax would be shifted from West Bengal to Karnataka? So to settle down this one, they said that the transaction, the supply of goods or services both between distinct persons are treated as supply. Since they are not related, to become a related person, we require two persons. At least there should be two persons. One, me and my relative. There are two persons. Can I say that Bangalore branch is my relative? No, we are the same thing, same person. So it is not covered in the umbrella of related person. Say, to take care of this type of situation, they identify a new word, they derive a new word called a distinct person. What do you mean by distinct person? All branches under the same PAN number, all GST registration number with same PAN number, the relationship between these are known as distinct person for each other. So since this is a transaction between distinct person, it will be treated as supply, even though the transaction does not involve any second person, does not involve any third party. It will be treated as supply, even though there is no consideration. If the transaction is between related person or it is between distinct person, it will be treated as supply, even though there is no consideration. If there is a consideration, surely it is a supply. Number third, supply of goods by a principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal, or by an agent to his principal. Can I say that principal to agent or vice versa? Ideally, there are two types of agent, Tacha Adat and Patra Adat. This type of situation is applicable in case of Patra Adat. That means if principal supplies the goods to Patra Adat agent, in that situation, it will be treated as supply, even though there is no consideration. And vice versa. Next, import of service by a person from a related person or from any of his other establishment outside India in the course of furtherance of business. For example, I bought a office in Karnataka in Bangalore. Now what happened? I want help of interior designer to decorate this one. My related person, my relative located in US, say my brother located in US, say my son located in US, is doing interior decoration in that country. So I called him, please suggest some good interior plan, design plan, and he provided me that plan. No consideration involved. There is a supply of services and it is the import of service. There is an import of service. It is from related person. And number three, it is for business. It is for furtherance or in the course of business. In that situation, even though there is no consideration, it will be treated as supply and liable for GST. In short, for import of services, there are two clauses. Number one, if it is with consideration, if it is with consideration, it is for personal use or for the business use, it will be treated as supply. In either situation, it will be treated as supply. If there is import of service with consideration, it will be treated as supply, whether it is for business use or it is for personal use. If it is without consideration, then ask yourself, it is for business or it is for personal use. If it is for personal use, it is not treated as supply. If it is for the business, then further ask, it is from related person or distinct person or it is from other person. If it is from other person, it is not treated as supply. If it is from related person or distinct person, it will be treated as supply. Is it clear? Any question till now? Any question till now? Anyone have any question? Any query? Anyone? Okay. So moving ahead. So ideally, we know that Section 7, which provide the definition and meaning of supply or deemed supply. We know that there are three elements which we are required to fulfill. There should be supply of goods or services or both. That supply should be for consideration and the supply should be in the course or furtherance of business. However, few more things we are supposed to consider, that is supply should be taxable supply. Suppose if you are selling some goods which are not liable to GST, then say you are selling alcoholic liquor. This is not a taxable supply. Since even though it is you are supplying certain goods or services, it is not a taxable supply. It is outside the purview of the GST. GST is not applicable. The supply should be made in the taxable territory. That means it should be made in India. If you are supplying goods, if you are locating US and you are supplying goods to UK, since it is not India is not involved in this type of transaction, GST question of GST, Indian GST does not arise. Last one, supply should be made by a taxable person. If you are not a taxable person, whatever supply made by you, it is not liable to be GST. What do you mean by taxable person? The person who is registered under this act and who is liable to be registered under this act, even though he is not registered, but if he is liable to be registered under this act, he is treated as a taxable person. Supply made by taxable person, supply should be made in the taxable territory, and that supply of goods or services should be a taxable supply. Plus, there should be consideration in the course of furtherance of business, and it is goods or services or both. If all these requirements are simultaneously fulfilled, then only the GST is triggered. Clear? Clear? Any doubt? Any question? Anyone have any question? Now comes to Schedule 2. Schedule 2 does not provide any supply or non-supply, just provide certain clarification whether the particular supply is a supply of goods or it is a supply of services. Sir, GST is a single act. What if the particular supply is treated as goods or services? It hardly matters. It's matter. Sometime rate may be different. Sometime certain scheme like composition scheme may or may not be applicable on goods or may not be applicable on services. That means you are supposed to take the advantages of certain schemes. It should be clear in your mind what you are supplying. Is it supply of goods or is it supply of services? In this table, Schedule 2, that CGST Act suggests CGST clarify certain things where there was doubt in previous VAT mechanism, etc. They clarify particular supply will be treated as supply of goods or it will be treated as a supply of services. Most important part in this, what's contract? I'm not going through each one by one item. We have limit time constraint. Say you visited to a restaurant, you order some dosa, a waiter serve you a dosa with chutney and sambar. The question arises whether it is from the point of view of restaurant, whether they are supplying goods or whether they are supplying services or both. In this situation, since dosa is a material thing, so we can say that they are providing goods, but they are also providing services. The question arises, particular bill, say dosa cost rupees 150. It is a supply of goods or is it a supply of service? They are not charging separate for dosa 100 for providing services of AC or waiter. They are not charging say 50. Altogether, the value of this supply is 150. There is no separate charges. In that situation, question may arise, what is supplied? Is it goods or is it services? Earlier, there was under VAT mechanism, our state government are considering this type of supply as a supply of goods, and central government is considering this type of supply as a supply of services. So both government are charging because whatever they consider, they are supposed to take the cake. If state government will suggest that it is a supply of service, they will not get the weight. And if central government will suggest that it is a supply of goods, so they will not got service tax. So both government are charging both type of taxes. Service tax is also applicable along with VAT. To nullify all these things, to clarify all these things, the government took the bold decision and suggests that in this schedule, they provides that particular supply is treated as supply of services. It is not treated as supply of goods. It is for clarification. They mentioned what's contract shall be treated as supply of services. It is not treated as supply of goods. Similarly, or few more are there which are listed in schedule number 2. You are supposed to go through it. Now come to negative list. Negative list means schedule 3 where government prescribed these activities or transactions are not treated as supply of goods nor treated as supply of services, neither treated as supply of goods nor treated as supply of services. Since this is not treated as supply at all, hence question of GST on these type of activities does not arise. The most important thing in this, service by an employee to the employer in the course of or in relations to employment. If you are, say, Mr. A is working with X Limited, ideally he is supplying services, he is providing services to X Limited. Against these services, he is getting salary. Ideally, he is supplying services to X Limited. Since you are the salaried person, since you are in the employment, these activities, these transactions are not treated as supply. These are not treated as supply at all. Hence, question of GST does not arise in case of Mr. A. However, if X Limited gives certain gifts to him worth more than 50,000 in a particular financial year, then it will be treated as supply. The gift shall be treated as supply. The salary should not be treated as supply. If the value of the gift is within 50,000 per year, then it is not treated as supply at all. Number next, service by any court or tribunal shall not be treated as supply of not treated as supply of goods or services, and question of GST does not arise. So the function performed by members of parliament, MP, MLA, members of panchayat, municipalities, etc., and any person who is holding constitutional post are not treated as supply. Hence, GST, the question of GST does not arise. Constitutional posts like President of India, Vice President of India, Prime Minister of India, Controller and Auditor General of India, Speaker of the Lok Sabha, Chief Justice of India, etc., are holding constitutional posts. Whatever supply they are, whatever they are providing services while performing their duties, it is not considered as supply for the purpose of GST. Services of funeral, including transportation of the deceased. Sale of land. This is important one. Suppose there are two possible situations. I want to buy a flat. I want to buy a flat. So there are two possible situations. I may bought ready flat. I may bought under construction. If I buy a ready flat, say the value of the flat is 1 crore, it is ready. I went and I paid 1 crore, and now I am the owner of this flat. Is it supply? Is it supply of goods? The question arises, is it supply of goods or services? The answer is no. It is an immovable property. It is an immovable property, and since it is an immovable property, it should not be considered as goods. So when I'm going to buy a ready flat, since it is neither a goods nor services, hence this is a mere purchase of immovable property, the question of GST does not arise. However, if I'm going to buy an under construction flat, the property is under construction. In that situation, since the property is yet not converted into immovable position, whatever I am buying, the contractor is working for me and he's constructing a flat for me. That means I'm acquiring his services. I'm buying his services. In that situation, if I bought a under construction flat, then it is treated as supply of services, and it is supply is liable for GST. That means if I bought a ready flat, it is the case of immobile property, GST is not applicable. If I bought a under construction property, it is the case of supply of services liable for GST. So dear student, be careful. If I bought a land, it is treated as supply of immobile property, hence GST, the question of GST does not arise. Is it clear? So question arises when a flat is considered as a ready, construction is completed, when it will be considered as a construction is completed. In this respect, they suggest that if I bought this flat after getting completion certificate for that flat, then it is ready flat. If I'm buying before obtaining completion certificate from the municipality by the contractor, by the promoter, then it is under construction. That means before getting completion certificate, it is under construction. After getting this construction completion certificate, if I'm buying this flat, then it is treated as immobile property. Question of GST does not arise. Actionable claim. Actionable claim other than lottery, betting and gambling are in the negative list. So can I say that in case of lottery, betting and gambling, GST is applicable. Apart from that, whatever actionable claim you have is you are supplying is not liable for GST. Supply of goods from a place in the non-taxable territory to another place in the non-taxable territory, US, UK. Since you are supplying goods from US to UK, question of GST does not arise. Similarly, last one, supply of goods in high C transaction, in high C sale transaction, or custom warehouse supply from custom warehouse goods. Since these goods are supplied before clearance for home consumption, not treated as supply. Moreover, our government also clarifies certain things. Suppose I have a truck. This is my truck. Here, some tools are kept. In case of any breakdown, these tools may be used by the driver. And here some goods are there for transportation. This truck is moving from West Bengal to Karnataka. Ideally, these goods are moving from West Bengal to Karnataka. So can I say that along with these goods, my truck, my tools are also moving from Bengal to Karnataka? Ideally, this should also be supply of these goods are treated as supply. But what about this truck? This truck is also moving from West Bengal, one state to another state. Ideally, it is also treated as supply. If this is treated as supply, this truck, I'm not discussing about the goods which are transported. I'm discussing about this truck. If this truck is treated, the movement of this truck from Bengal to Karnataka treated as supply, and if it is liable for GST, then it becomes cumbersome for the truck operator. Once it may move from Bengal to Karnataka, same truck may be moved from Karnataka to Kerala, then Kerala to again West Bengal to Rajasthan. It may happen. In this situation, government clarify that interstate movement of various modes of conveyance between distinct persons, including train, bus, trucks, tanker, trailer, vessels, container, aircraft, carrying goods or passenger, or both, it should be or, except in cases where such movement is for further supply of same conveyance, shall not be treated as supply. If I sold this truck and due to my sale transaction, this truck is moving from West Bengal to Karnataka, it will be treated as supply. However, if it is just as a mode of conveyance, it is moving, it is not treated as supply. Hence, question of GST does not arise. Now comes to my second topic, I'm covering in very rapid speed, trying to maximum coverage. Any question till now from supply? Giving overview of certain chapters within couple of hours. My goal is that one. Composite and mixed supply. The supply, if it is a bundle supply, then question arise at what rate that bundle would be taxed. For example, suppose I am supplying goods A, say it would be taxable at 18%. Suppose I am supplying B separately, it would be taxable at 12%. Say I supplied for 1 lakh, so GST would be 18,000. If I supplied this one is for 1,50,000, my GST would be again 18,000. Say these are separate supplied. So it is easier for me to calculate my GST. What happened if I supplied A and B both? A and B both, that means a bundle has been made and I'm supplying this bundle for rupees say 3 lakh. Now question arise, I am charging a single price of rupees 3 lakh for supplying both A and B. The question arises at what rate it will be taxable. It is for 18% or is it for 12%? I don't know what is the separate value of A and what is the separate value of B in this 3 lakh. I'm supplying A and B for a single value of rupees 3 lakh. In that question, a question arises, what should be the rate of GST is applicable? Is it 18% or 12%? We are supposed to identify the rate in this chapter. In this chapter, they suggest that a bundle of goods or services or both or any combination thereof, where 2 or more supplies are made, may be composite supply, may be a case of mixed supply. If it is a case of composite supply, then what should be charged as a GST rate? And if it is the case of mixed supply, then what should be the rate of GST? It is pre-described, pre-mentioned in this chapter. So what is it? In case of composite supply, a composite supply comprising 2 or more supply, one of which is a principal supply. In case where bundled is treated as a composite supply, then the rate applicable on the principal item would be applicable for the entire value. If in this case where 3 lakh worth A and B are supplied, if say A is the principal item, then the entire 3 lakh would be chargeable to GST at the rate of 18%. However, where B is the principal item, then the entire 3 lakh would be subject to tax at the rate of 12%. However, if this case is of mixed supply, then the highest rate of tax is applicable. The item which attract the highest rate shall be applicable on the entire value. Suppose in our example, A and B are supplied for rupees 3 lakh. If this is the case of mixed supply, A is supposed to be taxable at a rate of 18% and B is supposed to be taxable at the rate of 12%. The highest rate, 18 or 12%, whichever is higher, I believe 18% higher. If this is the case of composite supply, then the entire 3 lakh would, if this is the case of mixed supply, entire 3 lakh would be charged to tax at the rate which is higher among these items, that is 18%. Accordingly, you are supposed to calculate your tax liability. Now question arises, what do you mean by composite supply? What do you mean by mixed supply? How to segregate a bundle supply in these two parts? Whether it is a composite supply or whether it is a mixed supply, the definition of composite supply is given in section 2, clause 30. Composite supply means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient consisting of 2 or more taxable supply of goods or services or both or any combination thereof, which are naturally bundled. This is the key word. This is the symptom. You are supposed to identify whether a particular bundle is a composite supply. If it is the case of composite supply, that denotes the bundle is a naturally bundled, supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. For example, I'm selling this pen to my customer located in Delhi, West Bengal to Delhi. Now, in the invoice I prepare, I charge packing charges. I also charge the charge of pen, which is supposed to be taxable at the rate of 12%, say 1 lakh rupees. For packing charges, say 2000 rupees. Altogether, it is 1,12,000. I'm supplying goods as well as services. Now, identify whether this bundle is a case of composite supply or a mixed supply. We are supposed to apply. We are supposed to check. We are supposed to check whether this bundle is a case of composite supply or a mixed supply. Can I say that? Can I? Can I say that here the supply of pan is the principal supply, because all other supplies in these transactions are ancillary or ancillary to this particular supply of goods. If this is not happened, this will not happen. If this is not supplied, then packing charges, insurance charges are not supposed to be happen. Hence, can I say that this bundle is a case of composite supply? And these are the naturally bundled. If I'm selling some pan to my to customer which is located out in Delhi, it is naturally bundled that I am supposed to pack it and send it to him. It is a natural common practice for businessmen to supply in this way. So it is naturally bundled in the course of business, and out of these two, one is the main predominant supply, principal supply. So entire 1,12,000 is subject to tax at the rate applicable on the pan. One more example in this regard. Suppose I'm traveling from Kolkata to Delhi via Rajdhani Express. I believe everyone knows that Rajdhani Express provides food. Is it possible that I book a ticket from Kolkata to say Asansol, a nearby station, first stoppage from Kolkata to Delhi, that is Asansol, take the food, and after this food, I left the train at Asansol and came back to Kolkata. Is it possible? It is not possible, because the main supply, what Rajdhani is supplying, Rajdhani is supplying traveling, that means travel, as well as food. This is a combination. This is a bundle service. The main supply, is it food or it is travel? The travel I'm supposed to make it, then the food is the ancillary to this services provided by the Rajdhani Express. Can I say that this is a composite supply? This bundle is of composite supply, where travel service is the principal supply and food is the ancillary. So entire, if GST is applicable, then the entire value of the ticket is supposed to be charged at the rate which is applicable on travel. Similarly, few more examples are there which you are supposed to go through in your study material. Now comes to mixed supply. Mixed supply means two or more individual supplies of goods or services or any combination thereof made in conjunction with each other by taxable person for a single price, where such supply does not constitute a composite supply. For example, Diwali was just gone. If I go to Bikaram Chandmal or Haldiram Bhujiawala and bought a uh, that is what is called, some chocolates are there, some mithai sweets are there, some dry fruits are there. The entire plates I bought for rupees, say 2000. Now, say these items are taxable at the rate of 18%. These are taxable at 5%. These are taxable at, say, 28%. In that case, out of this 2000, they are charging a single price for this entire plate, entire hamper. They are charging 2000 rupees. Question arise, what should be the rate of GST? Is it 18%, 28% or 5%? Now identify, since this is a bundle, is it naturally bundle? No. Dry fruits, you may got separately. Cold drinks, you may got separately. You may got sweets separately. That means this is not a naturally bundled. And out of this, one more thing, one of them should be principal supply to consider this particular supply as a composite supply. Since none of the item are considered as a principal supply, this is the case of mid supply. In that situation, the rate which is highest among all these three rates, 5, 28 and 18, that is 28%, entire value, that is entire consideration 2000 should be taxable at the rate of 28%. Two parameters are here. We identify which we are supposed to examine whether a particular supply is a composite supply or a case of mixed supply. It is naturally bundled. In case of composite supply, yes. In case of mixed supply, no. Each supply available for supply individually. In case of composite supply, no. Mixed supply, it may or it may not be. One is predominant supply for recipient. In case of composite supply, yes. In mixed supply, yes or no. Other supplies are ancillary. In composite supply, it is yes. In case of mixed supply, no. Each supply priced separately. In case of composite supply, it may or may not be. In case of mixed supply, no. Supplied together, yes. All supplies can be of wood, goods, yes. All supplies can be of services, it is possible. A combination of one or more goods and one more services, yes, it can also be happen. Any combination may be there. Any question? Anyone have any doubt? Any question? Anyone? If anyone have any query, please. Anyone have any query? Okay. Now comes to another chapter, levy and collection. Levy and collection. There are three types of levy which we are supposed to understand: forward charge, reverse charge, and sometimes it is through third party, that is e-commerce operator may be charged. Forward charge basis. Ideally, the GST, the mechanism of GST depends on this forward charge basis. Ideal situation is that the supplier of goods or services are liable to pay GST. The levy is on that supplier of goods or services. A tax called Central Goods and Service Tax shall be levied. Be careful, it's a CGST. Similar provision is made in SGST and similar is made in IGST. A tax called Central Goods and Services Tax shall be levied on all interested supply of goods or services of both, where supply is intrastate. Supply may be interstate. In case of interstate supply, IGST is applicable. In case of intrastate, CGST or SGST or UTGST is applicable. The combo is applicable in case of interstate, single IGST is applicable. A tax called CGST shall be levied similarly SGST or UTGST on all intrastate supply of goods or services or both, except on the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption. That means on alcohol, GST is not applicable. On the value, since the GST is applicable on certain percentage, so we are required a value on which we are supposed to apply the rate. So on the value which is supposed to be determined under section 15 and at such rates which are prescribed but should not exceeding 20%. That means maximum to maximum rate of CGST would be 20%. In case of IGST, that means we can say that maximum GST rate would be 40%. How it is? 20% CGST plus 20% SGST comes to 40%. At present, no item are charged at 40%. All maximum rate of GST at present is 28%. However, government may charge rate up to 40%. This is IGST combined rate collected in such manner as may be prescribed and shall be paid by the taxable person. As per section 5 of the IGST Act, IGST shall be levied on all interstate supply. That means in case of intrastate, combination of CGST and SGST or UTGST is applicable. In case of interstate sale supply, the IGST single rate is applicable. However, this tax at present is not applicable on this 5 type of product. Alcoholic liquor, not applicable. It is outside the purview of the GST. If government want to levy GST on alcoholic liquor, they are supposed to amend the constitution. However, in this 5 type of items, whenever government want, they may activate the GST. What are these 5 items? Petroleum crude, that is crude oil, high-speed diesel, petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel. On these 5 type of items, at present, GST is not applicable. At present, earlier mechanism, that is excise plus VAT combo, is applicable on this 5 type of item. Alcoholic liquor, excise is applicable. Whatever existing system was there is continued. The difference between this and alcoholic liquor is that to levy tax on alcoholic liquor, government needs to amend to parliament. However, for these 5 items, whenever your government, your GST council suggests, recommend to the government, and government thinks, they may levy it immediately with immediate effect. Rate of GST. Ideally, earlier there was 4 type of rates on goods: 5, 12, 18, and 28. One more we added at 0%. In case of services, there was 4 rate: 5, 12, 28, and 18. 2 more rates are incorporated: 0.25% and 3%. These are the IGST rate. 0.25% and 3% on jewelry. These are applicable. 1.5% and 7.5% in case of services. These 2 rates are more added. Reverse charge. Ideally, the person who is supplying goods or service are liable for GST. However, in certain situation, the recipient of goods or services are required to pay tax on it. The tax are levied on the recipient of these goods or services. These are known as reverse charge mechanism. A notification are there. A separate notification are there for reverse charge on goods. These goods subject to these conditions are liable for reverse charge. That means the recipient of these goods are liable to GST. In respect of services, another notification are there. If you are supplying services which are prescribed here, in those situations, the recipient of services are supposed to pay tax on these type of services. I'm not going into one by one of these goods or services. These are the basic idea. You are supposed to go through this table, which is available in your study material. Now comes to tax on interested supply through e-commerce operator. One more thing, suppose I'm using Ola cab. I booked a Ola cab, a taxi with driver with chauffeur are there on my door, and I am the passenger. I use this service. I use the service of this car, which is provided by the chauffeur. I paid rupees 200 to him. Now the question arises: who is responsible to pay GST on this? Ideally, it is supplied by the taxi driver, it is received by me. If it is paid by me, it is case of reverse charge. If it is paid by him, this is a case of forward charge. But in this situation, a third person, that is e-commerce operator, that is Ola cab, are responsible to pay GST on this. This person is responsible to pay GST on this 200. Clear? Few more examples are there. These are the person on these e-commerce operator are responsible to pay GST. Service by way of transportation of passenger by radio, taxi, motor cab, maxi cab. You can say that this is the case of Ola, Uber. Services by way of providing accommodation in hotels, inns, guest house, clubs, campsite, or other commercial places meant for residential or lodging purpose, except where the person supplying such service through electronic commerce operator is liable for registration. That means OYO, etc. Services by way of housekeeping, such as plumbing, carpenting, etc. Can I say urban clap? Supply of restaurant service other than the services supplied by restaurant, eating joint, etc. located at specified premises like Swiggy. These type of e-commerce operator are responsible to pay GST on the services provided by them. Is it clear? Any question? Anyone have any question? Anyone have any question? Now we are taking a short break of 1 minute. After that, we are continuing this one. Clear? Give me a 1 minute. Okay. What do you mean by zero rated supply? Zero rated supply. Sometime if goods are exported or supplied through to a SEZ zone, it is treated as zero rated supply. That means what do you mean by zero rated supply? Zero rated supply means supply of goods or services both through export, that means export supply is treated as zero rated supply, and supply of goods or services both for authorized operation to a special economic zone developer or to a special economic zone unit. If these are the case, then it is treated as zero rated supply. GST is not applicable. Sir, what is the difference between zero rated and nil rated? We can say that exempt. In case of exempt supply, you are not eligible to take ITC of those items. However, in case of zero rated, you are eligible for ITC at the time of acquisition. Whatever GST is paid by you on those items, you are eligible for ITC, but you are not liable to pay any tax on the supply made by you to in the course of export or through SEZ units or developer. If this ITC you can utilize while paying your other GST liability. If it is not so, then it would be refunded to you. However, here in this case, no ITC is available to you. This is the basic difference. Now comes to composition levy. Any question till now? Anyone have any question? Anyone have any question? Any question? Okay, I believe there is no question. Composition levy. It is an alternative method to levy tax for small taxpayer. GST, for understanding for proper compliance, we require main force. Ideally, you are supposed to file return. You are supposed to pay. You are supposed to maintain accounts. You are supposed ITC, etc. There are a plethora of compliances burden on a person who is registered for GST. These compliances are very difficult, are not possible for the person who are doing the business at a very small level. That means a person is a small taxpayer. It is not possible for him to record all these things, to do all these compliances. It is not possible for them to hire a services of a professional to do all these things. It is easier for the big companies. They may hire a services of professional person for doing all this job. But in case of a small taxpayer, it is not possible for them. It is cost effective. To consider all these things in mind, the government provided this type of a scheme for small taxpayer. What are the advantages of composition scheme? There is lesser compliances. Obviously, that is the main purpose. Limited tax liability, which may convert into high liquidity as taxes are levied at lower rate. But if someone is getting these benefits, you are supposed to sacrifice certain things. You are supposed to compromise certain things. What are the disadvantages? You are not entitled for ITC on your purchase. If you are a composition dealer, if you are a dealer under this scheme, you are not entitled for ITC on your acquisition. You cannot supply interstate. That means you are supposed to make intrastate sale only. If you are doing interstate supply, you cannot take the benefit of this scheme. Number next, you should not be engaged in any goods which are not under the preview of the GST. Moreover, you are supposed to pay tax from your own pocket. You are not supposed to collect this taxation from your buyer. Ideally, what happened if I'm selling a 1 lakh rupees goods, GST rate is 18,000. I will collect entire 1,80,000 from my customer. But in this situation, if I am under composition scheme, the rate is concessional, but I'm not eligible, not entitled to recover the amount of tax from my buyer, from my customer. The entire tax, whatever with the rate is concessional, but the rate, the tax amount, I'm not eligible for ITC and I'm not eligible to recover that tax component from my buyer. That means it is from my own pocket. Since I'm not collecting, since I'm not collecting the amount of tax from my buyer, it will lead to increase in my costs. And moreover, I'm not taking ITC, it will also increase my cost. Since buyer is not paying tax to me, hence buyer is not entitled for any ITC. If he buy goods from me, he is not eligible for any ITC. So there are you are supposed to understand that there are certain advantages and there are certain disadvantages. You may lose some benefits of the GST. Most important, you are not eligible for doing business interstate. You are not eligible for ITC. You are not, your buyer is not eligible to take ITC. You are supposed to pay tax from your own pocket. Okay. Although these type of situations are there, still for some taxpayer, some small taxpayer, this scheme is beneficial. Now question arises, who is treated as a small taxpayer? The person whose heights are small, little? No. The composition levy, the small taxpayer depends on the turnover made by him in the preceding year. A registered person whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year did not exceed the threshold limit may. That means it is an optional scheme. It is up to you whether to go for this scheme or go with your regular one. May opt to pay in lieu of the tax payable by him under section 9(1), that is forward charge, an amount of tax calculated at such rate as will be prescribed. What is the threshold limit? Supply of goods and restaurant services. If you are supplier of goods and restaurant services, that means you are supplying goods or you are providing restaurant services. In that situation, if you are located in these 8 states of India, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Uttarakhand, then the limit is 75 lakh. If your aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year does not exceed 75 lakh, then you are eligible to opt this scheme for this particular previous year. For example, financial year 22-23, financial year 23-24. Say your turnover, you are located in Arunachal Pradesh and your turnover in this particular year is say 70 lakh. In this situation, if this is your turnover that is within the threshold limit of 75 lakh, you are entitled, you may opt this composition levy for financial year 23-24 and so on. That means whether you are eligible for this scheme or not in this particular financial year, you are supposed to check your turnover for the preceding financial year. In case if you are located in these 8 states, which are these 8 states? Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura. These are the 7 northeastern states and one more that is known as Uttarakhand. In these 8 states, the limit is 75 lakh. In case you are located in other part of India, the limit is 1.5 crore. If your turnover in the preceding financial year does not exceed 1.5 crore, then only you are eligible to opt for this scheme in this previous year. If you are a manufacturer and trader, and you are also supplying certain services, ideally the scheme is for goods, it is not for services. Only the services covered here is restaurant services. If you are supplying apart from restaurant services some other services, in that situation there is a cap to provide these services. Higher of the following is allowed. This is for your services part. 10% of turnover in a particular state in the preceding financial year or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is higher. Suppose I am dealing in cloth, selling shooting and shirting. I also have some tailor. I have arrangement in my shop, tailor. If you want to stitch all these shirt or pants, etc., I have this type of facilities also. In the preceding year, my total turnover from supplying these goods or services was say 1 crore. I'm located in West Bengal. So in this year, supply of services up to through this tailoring shop. This is a supply of service. I'm selling goods here, but I'm providing service here. Max to max, I can provide services up to 10% of 1 crore or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is higher. I believe 10 lakh would be higher. That means from tailoring shop, if I'm providing services, it must be within 10 lakh. If it exceeds the limit of 10 lakh, then I cannot opt this scheme. I'm supposed to opt out from this scheme immediately. And if I'm supplying services other than restaurant service, I'm supplying supplier of services other than restaurant services, then this threshold limit is 50 lakh. If I'm doing goods, if I'm supplying goods along with services, then there is a limit. If I'm supplying services, then this limit is applicable. However, if I'm a manufacturer of following goods, I cannot opt for this scheme, even though my turnover is within the limit prescribed by the scheme. If I'm the manufacturer of ice cream and other edible ice, whether not containing cocoa, pan masala, tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes, aerated waters, fly ash bricks, fly ash aggregate with 90% or more fly ash content, fly ash block, bricks of fossil mills or similar siliceous earth, building bricks or earthen or roofing tiles. If I am the manufacturer of these things, I'm not eligible for composition scheme, even though I satisfied all required conditions. Even though the turnover of my preceding financial year is within limit, I cannot avail this benefit. Moreover, the turnover, the threshold limit of 1.5 crore or 75 lakh is PAN-based turnover. It may happen you have two different branches, one in Bengal and another one is Karnataka. Your turnover of this 1.5 or 75 lakh should become consolidated basis. Moreover, West Bengal branch and Bangalore branch. Suppose your turnover in the preceding previous year was only 1.25 crore for both branch. Aggregate turnover is 1.25 crore. You may opt for this one, but what you want to opt for this, but not want to opt for this branch. It is not possible. If you are eligible for opt and you are opting, then you should opt for all of your branches. It is not possible couple of branches you are opting for this scheme and for a couple of branches you are not opting for this scheme. It is not possible. Once if you want to opt it, otherwise if you are eligible and you want to opt it, then you are supposed to opt for all of your branches which are under the same PAN number. Clear? Rate of GST for the supplier under composition scheme. What should be the rate of GST? Ideally, whatever the rate is suggested by the GST Act, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, forget about all these rates. Here, if you are under composition scheme, since you are supposed to pay it from your own pocket, you are supposed to pay GST on at these rates. Manufacturer other than manufacturer of ice cream, palm masala, tobacco, or aerated water, etc. That means you should not be manufacturer of all these things. If you are manufacturing of all these things, then this scheme is not applicable on you. Then rate of GST would be 1%. 1% of what? 1% of the turnover. Whatever turnover you have, 1% of that. If you are a trader, 1% of the turnover of taxable supply. Be careful the difference. Please note the difference between these two. 1% of the turnover, 1% of taxable supply. It may happen, being a trader, you are supplying certain exempted goods and you are supplying certain taxable goods. Say it is 50 lakh and it is only say 25 lakh. In that situation, you are supposed to pay 1% of this 25 lakh. You are not supposed to consider this one. If you are a manufacturer, in that situation, you are supposed to pay 1% of 1% of entire 75 lakh. Be careful about this one. In case of restaurant service, 5% is applicable. In case service other than restaurant service, 6% is applicable. Clear? Be careful. This concessional rate is applicable in case you are paying tax under forward charge mechanism. Any reverse charge liability, whenever you are liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism, you are supposed to pay tax regularly. Is it clear? Suppose if you are buying any services which are subject to GST and the reverse charge mechanism, on those services or on those goods, you are supposed to pay tax. Whatever I am supposed to pay, accordingly, you are supposed to pay the tax under reverse charge mechanism. This scheme is replacing your forward charge. This scheme is not replacing your reverse charge. Certain conditions you are supposed to fulfill if you are under this scheme. The registered person shall be eligible to opt for composition scheme if he is not engaged in the supply of services. However, up to certain limit, supply of services is available, is possible. What is the limit? 10% of your turnover of preceding financial year or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is higher. He is not engaged in making any supply of goods or services which are not liable to tax under this act. He is not engaged in making any interstate outward supply of goods or services. Interstate, it is not possible for you. He is not engaged in making any supply of goods through electronic commerce, e-commerce operator. You can't supply goods or services through e-commerce operator. He is not a manufacturer of certain notified goods. We already discussed. He is neither a casual taxable person nor a non-resident taxable person. He should not be a casual taxable person and should not be a non-resident taxable person. Here, if you are under composition scheme, you are supposed to put composition. You are supposed to mention this wording on any bill of supply made by you against your supplies. Composition taxable person not eligible to collect tax on supplies, and at your principal place of business, it should be mentioned composition taxable person on your notice board or sign board displayed at your place of business. One more thing, what do you mean by aggregate turnover? For the purpose of calculating this threshold limit, we are required aggregate turnover. So what should be considered as aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover means the aggregate value of taxable supply, excluding the value of inward supply on which you are supposed to pay tax on reverse charge basis. That means the supply made by you in the preceding financial year on which forward charge is applicable. Exempt supply, that means for the purpose of calculating this aggregate turnover, you are supposed to consider exempt supply also, excluding the supply exempted services provided by way of extended deposits, loan or advance, insofar as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discounts. Export of goods or services or both, you are supposed to consider this one. Interested supply of person having the same pen, that is the stock transfer between the same between branches, or you can say that distinct person. You are supposed to add all these things, but does not include CGST, any type of GST, and value of exempt supply of services provided by way of extended deposits, loan or advances. One examples I have. You are supposed to solve this one. We have 5 minutes time to solve this one. You have 5 minutes time to solve this one. Please try to solve it. You have 5 minutes time. You have 5 minutes time to solve this one.
Sir, your voice is not clear. No, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
okay, I'm repeating. Mr. Ritesh of Assam provides the following information for the preceding financial year 21-22. Please notice he is from Assam. You are required to find out the aggregate turnover for the purpose of eligibility of composition levy scheme and determine whether he is eligible for composition levy scheme or not for the financial year 22-23. Ideally, what should be your course of action? We are supposed to examine for financial year 22-23. So we are required to check for aggregate turnover for financial year 21-22. If it is within limit, then he may, otherwise he may not. So what should be the limit? In case if he is located in Assam, the limit is 1.50 CR. If he is located in like Uttarakhand or in Arunachal Pradesh, then this limit would be reduced to 75 lakh. However, since he is located in Assam, the limit is 1.50 CR. So how to find out the aggregate turnover? Value of taxable outward supply out of about rupees 10 lakh was in the course of interstate transaction. Sir, he is doing interstate transactions, so he is not eligible for composition levy. No, he done all these interstate transaction in last year. After opting for this composition scheme, he is not supposed to do interstate supply. In last year, in the preceding year, he may not be in the composition levy scheme, so he are free to do interstate transaction. So don't confuse with this interstate transaction that scheme is not applicable of him. After opting for this scheme, he is not supposed to do interstate supply. So inter 75 lakhs should be considered as supply for the purpose of aggregate turnover. Value of exempt supply, which includes rupees 30 lakh received as interest on loan and advance. This 30 lakh should not be considered while calculating your aggregate turnover of the preceding previous year. So 70 as reduced by 30 lakh, that is 40 lakh, should be considered for the purpose of calculating aggregate turnover of the preceding previous year. Value of inward supply on which he is liable to pay tax under reverse charge. The value of taxable supply on which he is liable to pay reverse charge is not supposed to be considered. Only we are supposed to consider the charge on him, which are supposed to be under forward charge. So the value this 15 lakh should not be considered. Value of export. He is not supposed to do export once he opt for this scheme. In the preceding previous year, he may do anything, so he can. This 7 lakh should be considered in this turnover. So altogether, his turnover, his aggregate turnover for preceding previous year is 122. Can I say that 122 lakh? Can I say that the turnover, the aggregate turnover of Mr. Ritesh is within the limit? So he is entitled, so he can opt. So he is eligible to opt for composition levy for financial year 22-23. What happened? He is eligible, but he did not opt. No issue. It is optional scheme. It's totally depend on the choice of the SSE. In our case, it is Mr. Ritesh. He may or may not opt. Is it clear? Now comes to time of supply. Any question till now? Anyone have any question? Anyone have any question or any query? Please raise. I believe we done 4 chapters. If anyone have any query, anyone, please raise. Or one. Time of supply. Time of supply denotes the point of taxation. The point in which point of time you made the supply to determine this one. This chapter is important. Suppose the process of supply is like this. You may got order. On the basis of this order, you are uh, preparing goods, packing, etc. Now you are dispatching, you are preparing invoices, at which point, and last, your customer is getting goods. We can say delivery taken place. So the question arises at which point of time it is considered as GST is applicable, GST is triggered. When you are getting order, when you are packing goods, when you are dispatching goods, when you are preparing invoice, when goods are delivered to the customer, at which point of time we can say that it is supply, you are liable for GST. It may happen this process are not completed within a couple of seconds. Say you got the order on 1st July 2023. You are packing started on say 15th July 2023. Packing and manufacturing started and your dispatch or made invoice say on 29th July 2023 and delivery was supposed to be done on 2nd of August 2023. It may happen. So question arise at which date we should consider the supply has been made by you. This chapter will decide. This is the importance of this chapter. So what happened? We are supposed to pay tax. It's hardly matter. It is material. If we consider this one as a date of supply, then you are supposed to clear your liability by August 20. If we consider this as your point of supply, point of time of supply, in that situation, you are supposed to pay your tax liability to the government by 20th September. Ideally, you are supposed to pay tax in the next 20th of the next month. So it's depend on this particular time of supply when it is considered a supply, and accordingly you are liable to pay tax in your it is not possible without this chapter to identify the due date of payment of your taxation. So this chapter is one of the important chapter in the series of GST. Time of supply. Section 12 and 13 are there. 12 and 13 are there. Section 12 for goods to determine time of supply of goods. Section 13 is for determining time of supply for services. Time of supply of goods, forward charge. The time of supply of goods shall be earlier of the following. Be careful, earlier of the following. The date of issue of invoice by the supplier, the date on which you issue the invoice, the last date on which he is required to issue the invoice with respect to the supply made under Section 31, or the date on which the supplier receives the payment with respect to the supply. At this present, this is not relevant for your examination because there is a circular and notification which specifically mentioned that payment date is not considered in case for determining time of supply of goods for under forward charges. So I can bypass this one. So can I say that time of supply of goods shall be the earlier of the following dates, earlier of the date of issue of invoice by the supplier or the last date on which he is required to issue the invoice are considered as the time of supply of goods. So what is the last date of issuing invoices? What the supply involves movements of goods, you are required to issue invoice before or at the time of removal of goods for supply to the recipient. If your supply does not involve movements of goods, then delivery of goods or making available thereof to the recipient. That means you are supposed to issue invoice before or at the time of delivery of goods or making available thereof to the recipient. Clear? In nutshell, supply involves movement of goods, yes or no? if it is involved movements of goods earlier of the following: date of issue of invoice or date of removal of goods of supply, whichever is earlier. In case supply involves no movements of goods, there is no movements earlier of the following: date of issue of invoice or date of delivery of goods or making available to the recipient, whichever is earlier, should be considered as a time of supply. One illustrations are there. You in case one, you issue invoice on 15th April 22, remove goods on 20th April, goods are made available to your customer on 20th April, payment was received on 19th May. Can I say payment that this date are irrelevant? You are not supposed to consider, you are not supposed to focus on these dates, whichever is earlier. Can I say 15th April is earlier? So time of supply in this case is 15th April. 15th May is the invoice issue date. Removal of goods 20th April, 20th April. Can I say that whichever is earlier, this one or this one, whichever is earlier? 20th April is the earlier one. So 20th April should be considered as the time of supply. 15th April, removal of goods not required, goods made available on 15th April, whichever is earlier. 15th April should be considered as the time of supply. 15th May, 20th April. I believe 20th April should be considered as a time of supply. 15th June, 20th June. It should be 15th June 2022 should be considered as time of supply. Time of supply of goods in case of reverse charge. If reverse charge is applicable, in that situation, the time of supply should be the earliest of the following dates. These 4 dates, whichever is earlier date, should be considered as the time of supply. What is this? The date of receipt of goods, the date of payment as entered in the books of accounts of the recipient, the date on which the payment is debited from your bank account, the date immediately following 30 days from the date of issue of invoice or any other document in lieu thereof by the supplier. In short, when you receive the goods, when your payment is entered in the books of accounts, when your payment is debited in the bank, and 31st day from the date of issuance of invoice, whichever is earlier, should be considered as time of supply of goods in case of reverse charge. One example is that Mr. Amar supplies goods liable under reverse charge to Mr. Nath. You are required to determine time of supply considering following details. Mr. Nath approached Mr. Amar and placed an order. These data are totally irrelevant. Mr. Nath receives the goods. This is relevant. Mr. Amar issue an invoice. This is relevant. Mr. Nath makes a payment by check and accordingly record in his books of accounts. This date is relevant. The payments date debited from Mr. Nath's bank account. This date is relevant. So for the purpose of computing time of supply, we have 4 dates. We are supposed to examine 4 dates. The date of receipt of goods, that is 10th April. The date of payment recorded in your books of accounts, that is 20th April. The date when the payment gets debited from your bank account, that is the 25th April. 31st day from the date of issuance of your invoice by Mr. Amar. He issued invoice on 15th April. Add 31 day in this 15th April, which comes to 16th May 2022. So can I say that out of these 4 dates, which date is earlier should be considered as a time of supply? That is 10th April 2022. How shall your answer differ if the goods were received by Mr. Nath on 30th April 22 instead of 10th April? So what happened in that situation? In that situation, date of receipt of goods would be 30th April, 20th April, that is a payment date in your books account, remains same. 25th April, the amount on which the debited from your bank remains same. 31 days from the date of invoice, that is 16th May 2022, remains same. Whichever is earlier, 20th April would be considered as date or time of supply. Time of supply in case of vouchers. If the supply is identifiable at the point at which a voucher was issued, the date of issue of voucher, If the items are not identifiable, the date on which voucher is redeemed. Generally, what happened? Uh, if I want to give some gift to my friend, instead of buying goods from for him, instead of buying any product for him, I will give say 1,000 rupees Amazon voucher. Now it is up to him, whatever product he may acquire. It may happen. So in this case, when I bought these vouchers from Amazon, what type of supply it should be, my friend would buy from these vouchers, it is not known to the Amazon. In that situation, when this 1,000 rupees are redeemed by my friend, as on that date, whatever items he buy, accordingly, rate of GST would be finalized. Accordingly, time of supply would be finalized. If at the point of this acquisition, if at the point of the acquisition, I know that this particular item should be supplied, in that situation, the time of supply in hands of the issuing company of the voucher is the date of issuance of the vouchers. Time of supply in other cases of goods, where a periodical return has to be filed, the date on which such return is to be filed. In any other case, the date on which the tax was paid. Time of supply in case of enhancement in value on account of interest, late fees, etc. If due to interest, late fees, etc., your valuation has been increased, for this part, the time of supply should be the time of supply to the extent it relates to an addition in the value of supply by way of interest, etc., shall be the date on which the supplier received this money in addition to the valuation of goods. This date, the receipt date, should be considered as the time of supply. Time of supply of services in case of forward charge. Earlier we discussed with section 12 that was belongs to for goods. Now we are discussing services. In case of services, delivery, the question of delivery does not arise. The question is very simple. The date of issue of invoice by the supplier, the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. This is applicable only if the service provider made an invoice within that period prescribed under section 31. What is the period prescribed under section 31? Ideally, whenever you deliver the services, it is within 30 days you are supposed to issue an invoice. In case certain banking company or insurance segment, it is 45 days. Suppose I conduct an audit. The audit report was submitted by me on say 1st of the Feb, say 1st of the October 2022. Add 30 days in it. Within this date, I'm supposed to issue invoice. If my invoice was issued within this date, then point of time, that time of supply should be calculated by applying this formula. That is the date of issue of invoice or the date of receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. However, if this invoice is issued on say 15th of November, in that situation, since I failed to issue my invoice within 30 days from the providing the services, the time of supply should be calculated by applying this formula. That is the date of completion of this service, that is 1st 10 2022, or the receipt of payment date, whichever is earlier. There are a couple of illustrations I have. Illustration number 6, case number 1. Date of supply of service 15th April 2022. Date of issue of invoice 20th April. Can I say that within 30 days I made an invoice? I issued the invoice. Date of entering payment in books of accounts 22nd. Date of credit of payment in bank's account, whichever is earlier. That is 20th April 2022 should be considered as time of supply. 15th April, 20th May 2022 I issued. Can I say that I failed to issue my invoice within 30 days? Now, the payment date should be relevant. This 15th April or payment date, whichever is earlier, should be considered as my time of supply. Accordingly, 15th April should be my time of supply. 15th April, 20th April, within 30 days it was done. So 15th April, so 20th April should be relevant, and the date of payment, that is 17th April or 20th April, whichever is earlier, that is 17th April. 15th April, 20th April. This 20th April is relevant. 2nd April, 3rd April. This 2nd April, whichever is earlier, 2nd April should be considered as time of supply. 15th April, 20th May. So 15th April is the relevant. 2nd April, 1st April. So this 1st April should be considered. We are supposed to compare between this, and this. If it is within 30 days, we are supposed to compare with this, and this. Mr. Kedar provides consultancy services to Mr. Nath worth rupees 50,000. On 8th of April, an advance of rupees 10,000 received from Mr. Nath. On 10th of the April, the consultancy services are provided. On 16th May 2022, Mr. Kedar received balance payment of rupees 40,000 and record it in his books. What will the time of supply, assuming Mr. Kedar issued the invoice on 15th April 22 or 15th May 2022? Now, for this 10,000, in any circumstances, the time of supply would be 8th April 2022, because on payment basis, it would be considered as time of supply 8th April 2022. Regarding this 40,000, we are supposed to examine whether the invoice was issued within 30 days or not issued. So if the service was completed, service was provided on 10th April and issuance was made on 15th April, it is within the time. So in that situation, we have two dates. Date of issuance of invoice, that is 15th April 22. And the date of receipt of payment, that is 16th May 2022, and one more is 8th April 2022. For 10,000, that should be considered, and for 40,000, this date is relevant, whichever is earlier. Done. For 10,000, for 10,000, 8th April should be considered, and for the remaining, for the balance amount, the time of supply would be 15th April. What happened if 15th May is there? In that situation, instead of 15th April, it would be 10th April. Done. Time of supply of services under reverse charge. Under reverse charge mechanism, there are 3 dates. We are supposed to examine the three days, and whichever date is earlier should be considered as the time of supply in case of service under reverse charge, liable to pay tax under reverse charge. The date of payment entered in the books of accounts, the date when the amount is debited in your bank account, the date immediately following 60 days from the date of issue of invoice of your supplier. That means 61st days. The date of payment as entered in the books of accounts, date on which the payment is debited, and 61st day from the date of issuance of invoice by the supplier, whichever is earlier should be considered as your time of supply. Mr. Ram provides certain services to Mr. Nath, which falls under reverse charge basis. 10th April 22, the service was provided to Mr. Nath. 12th April, Mr. Ram issues and invoices to Mr. Nath. 10th July, the payment is made by Mr. Nath through a check and recorded in his books of accounts. On 15th July 2022, the payments gets debited from Mr. Nath's bank account. Since this is under reverse charge basis, we are supposed to examine 3 dates. The date of payment would be 10th July. The date when the payment was debited in the bank account, that is 15th July, and the 61st days from the date of issuance of invoice, that is 12th April plus 61 days. 12th April plus 61 days comes to 12th June 2022, whichever is earlier. So the due date whichever is earlier. So due date would be 12th of June 2022. Done. One more thing. The Rajendra provides certain services to Mr. Nath, which falls under reverse charge basis. On 10th October, the service was provided. On 12th October, the Rajendra issues an invoice to Mr. Nath. On 10th March, the payment is made by Mr. Nath through a check and recorded in his books of accounts. On 15th March, the payment gets debited from his bank account. So what should be the time of supply? What date should be considered? 10th March, 15th March, and 61 days from this 12th October. So 61 days from this 12th October comes to 12th December 2022, whichever is earlier. 12th December 2022 is earlier. That should be considered as a time of supply in case of these services liable to be taxed under reverse charge mechanism. Any question, any query? Time of supply of services in case of voucher, same as we discussed in the supply of goods. Time of supply of services in case of residual cases, same. Time of supply in case of enhancement in value on account of interest, late fees, etc. Same. One more important aspects in this time of supply, what happened if rate change? If there is a change in the rate, so we are supposed to consider there are two legs of the transaction, issuance invoice and payment received. If and supply, out of these three aspects, supply, provision of supply, invoice and payment, out of these three things, if two events taken place before change in the rate, old rate would be applicable. If out of these three, two events taken place after change in the rate of taxation, the new rate would be applicable. Where the goods or services or both have been supplied before, that means supply has taken place before change in the rate, invoice was issued after, payment was received after. Since two events was happened after this change in the rate, so the new rate would be applicable. Invoice was issued before the change in the rate and payment was received after. Since out of three events, supply and invoice was made before change in the rate, old rate would be applicable. In vice versa, old rate would be applicable. While the goods or services both have been supplied after the change in the rate of tax. Supply was made after, there's been already new rate got the one vote. Now we are supposed for decision making, we need one more rate. That means the one more event should be taken place after change in the rate. Before, after. Since one change was done after change in the rate of taxation, the new rate would be applicable. Before, two votes are in the old rate, so old rate is applicable. One rate after, before, the new rate would be applicable. Any question, any query? If anyone have any question, any query, please raise. Almost we cover 5 chapters of the GST in this 2-hour session. Hopefully you enjoyed the session. Still you have any query, please raise. If anyone have any question, any query, please raise. Else, shall I conclude the session? Anyone? Okay, so that I am concluding this session. Hopefully you enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.